Hello, this is Pick, and welcome to this video covering the Extended Industrialization mod, an add-on for Modern Industrialization. Available in FTB Neotech, but of course this applies to the mod in general. So, the first thing we're going to look at is the bending machine and the alloy smelter. These two machines allow some extra recipes that aren't in the base mod. The bending machine can take plates and rods and bend them into curved plates and rings. This is twice as fast as the method of producing them in the compressor. However, these are completely unnecessary and are only a faster method of crafting these particular recipes. We also have the alloy smelter. This is also unnecessary, but as you would imagine, it being an add-on to a base mod, it only adds new recipes that were already doable before. So anyway, if we look at this, we can make alloys from the base constituents, and you have a few options as to how you want to do that, I suppose. But the point here is that this is an alternative to the typical method in which you would take a mixture. Okay, I guess this was a bad recipe to go off of, but if we look at battery alloy dust, you can see you can make this in the mixer, and this is an alternative method using the alloy smelter. It's a shorter way of doing it if you have everything as an ingot already and don't feel like mixing together some dusts. Here I will make some assumptions that you know things about the base mod. All of these machines come in a bronze, steel, and electric tier unless you do not see the bronze or steel tier, as they might not exist. So the brewery is another one of these machines. It only has a steel or better tier, and what it does is it allows you to make potions. I shouldn't have to demonstrate this, but you can put water in here, you can put blaze powder in here, and then you put all your ingredients in here, and it will use the steam or electricity to automatically brew potions for you. I guess if you're in a mod pack that wants you to be making potions, this would be more useful. Alright, I changed my mind. This is pretty worth demonstrating, actually. So, if we put the ingredients in to these top slots, and we put some bottles in, and we give it some more water, you'll see it'll start crafting potions. Now, because I put in all three of these ingredients in sequential order, it gives me the correct type of potion. However, if I don't have the ingredients to make a valid potion, it will instead take what it sees, and if there's only one ingredient in it, it will make mundane potions. That being said, if you have more than one ingredient, it will force it to craft these particular outputs, and you can also lock slots to make sure that you're only crafting the particular types of potion that you actually want. Next we have the canning machine, a rather simple machine. This harkens back to the days of IC2, that's Industrial Craft 2, and if you're as old as I am as far as modded Minecraft's considered, you know well what this does. It makes canned food, but it also acts as a bucketing machine. So if you want to store a fluid in a bucket for whatever reason, there you go. You can bucket it. And that's pretty much it, because we don't need a canning machine to make nuclear fuel rods or anything like we did back in the day. Solar boilers, as the name implies, are boilers that boil water with sunlight. If we allow water to go into these boilers, they will start producing steam. However, it's worth noting that they will calcify over time. Now, obviously, the steel boiler is going to be faster than the bronze boiler. This is the case with all steel and bronze machines, but figured I might as well say it. And if we look at the calcification rate, and just speed this up to an ungodly speed, it will start producing steam extremely quickly. Also, the solar efficiency is dependent on the time of day. So if I were to get rid of the clouds here, okay, no clouds, and we have the sun. If I were to change time, set noon, you will see that the solar efficiency is much higher. And I probably shouldn't have to say this, but the solar boiler will not work at night. So Yeah, now this isn't calcifying. I don't know exactly what the formula is, but just know that it does happen, and I believe it takes the maximum efficiency down to a third of what it was naturally. Note that if you want to completely avoid the calcification, you can use distilled water instead of regular water inside the solar boiler. You can't reclaim the distilled water as it just turns itself into regular steam, so be aware of that. But there is a positive energy gain from this, so for what energy you do use putting it in the distillery, it will still come out with a positive amount of energy if you put it through the solar boiler. The electric and steel honey extractors are automated methods of extracting honey from beehives. Now, the point that it extracts from is probably this face side, but for the point of this, I'm not having any bees making honey anyway. It extracts the honey as a fluid, and the fluid honey can be used to wax copper, as well as be turned into crystallized honey, which is a source of sugar. Note that it does not produce honeycombs, so you'll need to get those in another way. The waste collector and composter are used to turn farming waste into fertilizer. If I were to put a cow above this waste collector and take a storage unit and power this electric waste collector, it will start processing to produce manure. Manure can then be sent through the composter alongside some bone meal and some mulch to make composted manure, which is a better fertilizer than regular manure. This composted manure and regular manure can be used in the farmer as a fertilizer, and also the composter can perform any regular recipes that require composting. So it handles all of the regular ratios of item to bone meal as far as the composting is concerned. And of course you can extract the manure out with pipes and whatnot. The steam chainsaw is very similar to the other steam mining drill. If you were to right-click with some fuel on it and fill it, it will function as an axe that runs off of steam power. Of course, you'll need to fill it with water. If you have water in your inventory, that should work, I think, maybe. But also you can just right-click on a water source block and that will fill it too. And then you can use it to break wood, much like you would an axe. There's also the electric chainsaw, same thing but electric, and the electric mining drill, same as the steam mining drill, but electric. Finally, we have the ultimate laser drill. This is something from the end of the game, and it's something that uses electricity, and I believe it works as an omni tool. And so, that brings us to the wireless charging stations. There are 3 tiers of wireless charging station. If I were to put down a creative energy source, and this thing takes MV power, by the way. They each use an increased power tier as reflected by their texture, but this one is going to slowly charge this ultimate laser drill with an MV power rate. I don't know exactly what the rates are for these things, but know that this is the least good one, and it also has an effective range limit. I'm going to ballpark what that range is, so it's somewhere along the way back here. It's not, yeah, there, it's this far away. This isn't a very big range. I guess if I were to calculate that real quick, I would be going from, what, 79 to 49, so that's like 30 to 32 blocks, I suppose. But, yeah, the range on this isn't very big. So let's upgrade to the global wireless charging station. This one runs off of high voltage power. I'm going to be gaining energy from it much quicker than the other one. And most importantly, I can go anywhere. No matter how far I go, it'll keep charging as long as the chunk is loaded. So obviously you have to make sure you have a chunk loader or something. And then we also have the interdimensional one. This one is the fastest, and it works everywhere, even cross-dimensionally. So if I were to go to the end or something, it would charge my stuff there. Here that isn't too useful, but in other packs it might be significantly more useful, I suppose. And another thing to note is that this, of course, takes EV power. Also, the global charging station can handle a gravichest plate's rate of consumption. So if you're worried about how much energy is going into your flying pack, then there you go. This does the job perfectly well. And given that you kind of hang around your base in the end game anyway, it's probably sufficient to just use one of these. But, you know, you can use this one if you want as well. Okay, now we get to the farmers. Now that I've finished all of the single block machines, except for a few things that I've saved for later, we can look at the multi-blocks. So, what we have here is a farm I've set up. If you're familiar with the multi-farms from the forestry mod, it's very similar to that. You can have a steam or electric version. The electric version, despite being steel colored, is also capable of performing more functions. If I were to change the size, it wouldn't work, much as the other multi-blocks that have variable size do from the base mod. You can also decide whether you want to till crops or not till crops. This would be not tilling for things like cactus or sugarcane, and tilling for things like wheat or carrots. There are also different methods of performing the farming. You can have different crops in different quadrants, you can have alternating lines of crops, or you could just have whatever it doesn't have planted right at that minute. Right now you can see wheat, carrot, wheat, carrot, wheat, carrot, wheat, carrot, wheat. And also, if we go under the hood, I'm powering it with electricity. You'll need an energy input for that. Then I need a water input and a fluid two fluid inputs, one for water and one for fertilizer. And then we go over here and we have our item input. This is where we put our carrots and our wheat seeds. And then we have an output. It doesn't actually fit in there because it's not big enough to fit all of that. But if I were to put a much bigger output in here, you can see that it harvests the carrots and the wheat at the same time. So that's the basics of using the farm. You can use it for whatever use cases you want. Again, remember, you need manure, you need water, and you need to have an amount of space. Oh, also, it's worth noting that if you don't have the right amount of dirt, like if I were to go medium here, and we're just going to pretend that there's no problem down there with the rest of the structure, I would need to fill in all of this dirt to have it work properly. So make sure that the multi-block is the right size, and then it will function as you wish it would. So now we have the large steam furnace and the large steam macerator. You'll need a fluid input to have the steam, and then you'll need an item input and output for each of them. So if I were to put this raw iron in, it will grind it up, turning it into raw iron dust 8 at a time. It uses 75% of the steam that it would have used otherwise with a single block machine. And then I can put the iron dust into the furnace, and it will make 8 iron ingots as a result. So there you go. Steam furnace, steam macerator. Now, like most machines, there is an electric variant of these steam machines. Of course, you'll need the matching structures for them, but we have the large electric furnace and the large electric macerator. Put it in, it has a higher stack size, so it'll process a lot more at a time. And what's also worth noting is that the size at which it performs a recipe in the large electric furnace is determined by the coil. So, like the electric blast furnace, I can upgrade the coils on the machine, and that will allow it, instead of doing more recipes, it allows it to do recipes faster. So, if I were to put this in, you'll see it took 32 in at a time, instead of the previous tier, which only took in, I believe it was 16. This brings us to the universal transformer. Place it down, connect it to some power, and it will send power from one type of energy to another. However, you need to make sure that it's correctly oriented. So first, you need to make sure that the right side, that would be the square side, is on the higher side of voltage, and then you need to put the hull of proper tier into the transformer. The one on top is what we're inputting with, the one on the bottom is what gets outputted. So in this case, there's no hull, so it's LV, and we're going from HV to LV directly without having to use 2 different transformers. And this is charging this LV storage unit. Next up, we have the machine chainer. This is a godly piece of equipment. One of the best things that this add-on adds. It's a shame it's kinda laggy once you start using a ton of them. So what this does is it's able to treat every inventory that it's touching as a connected machine. And this means that anything touching it and in that line will be part of its extended inventory. All pipes can interact with everything along this line. You're still restricted by regular pipe limitations, but you can use motors to bypass that issue. But if I were to say, allow the redstone to enter these machines, you'll see that it will start filling them. And once I power this with a creative energy, it will power all of these machines as well. But what's really awesome about this is that this is not dependent on the tier of power. I can power these LV machines with this one machine chainer, and you can see that in its recipe. It requires 2 of them for a reason. But what it's going to do is it's going to power all of these touching machines. I can also use the machine chainer relay to add a buffer that connects to these machines. Now this does count as a connected machine. You can see 5. I have 4 machines and 1 relay. That means 5. But this is a good way to have a quote-unquote dead block in the center that simply allows for connectivity and doesn't have any actual machine in it. And I guess you could like use them for aesthetic or whatever, but the point being here is that these allow for a lot of connected automation, and I know that this is kind of slow, but if we wait for this to finish momentarily, it will start pulling all of those drops into this configurable chest that I laid out. And it will do this for all of these machines, not just the ones that it can see right here. So all of these machines are sending into this chest, and they're all getting sent into from here. Really handy for very large, expansive automation, but I would highly recommend filtering your slots to make sure that nothing unwanted goes in there as well. It's also important to note that machine just means any inventory that it can connect to as long as it's from Modern Industrialization. I don't know if storage blocks count, but I know for a fact that ports for multi-block machines do count as well. So if I were to power this and say get some items going, and it'll put the items in, and we just need a fluid pipe to take from in here, we can have this machine all being automated from one block. See, this EBF, great. All working, can interact with everything from this one block face. And yes, if you were to put a bunch of these multi-blocks in a row, it would work as well. Really handy. This brings us to another multi-block that is very useful, the processing array. This is like those big machines over there, but it works with any single block machine. You simply have to fill the inventory with the number of machines that you want. Different sizes can handle different numbers of machines, but you'll need to make it a much longer multi-block to house more machines, of course. And so, if I were to allow items into here, it will start filling these ports with redstone. I'm just going to speed up the process here. What's going to happen is it's going to run all of these recipes at once. Now I'm just going to speed this up just a little bit, just so we can see what happens. I guess currently there was one port that had some stuff in it from a failed attempt at recording, but once we see it finish, it will dramatically jump up the number of products we have because it just ran 16 operations at once. It can handle up to 64, so a full stack of machines. But of course it only handles one type of machine. You cannot split it between different machine types. That won't work. But yeah, this processing array is very useful for that. And of course, if I wanted to, I could just run this pipe all the way over here because it has the same junk in it, and we have it output all of those drops into here out from these ports. Of course, it's going to go quite slowly because there are no motors in here, but you get the point. Very handy multi-block machine. A rather quick thing to look at is the machine config card. So let's say I wanted to centrifuge some redstone through the centrifuge and save this recipe. I can shift right click with the configuration and right click to send this configuration over. It only works if the machines are the same type of machine, so be aware of that. But it does at least let you copy the configuration if you're running many machines in parallel, such as with the machine chainer. The last thing to discuss is solar panels. Now, these work a little differently from the solar panels you might be used to. The main discrepancy is that these actually require a resource to use. So in a way, they're almost kind of balanced, I think. I much prefer it this way, you know, having some type of cost to all of my generators, and not this set and forget nonsense. You'll have to automate production of photovoltaic cells, so each of them has their own recipe, increasing in complexity the further you get through the pack. But you can also use distilled water to mitigate the amount of damage that the photovoltaic cells take. So you will have to constantly supply these photovoltaic cells with distilled water, or rather these solar panels with distilled water. Of course, they will generate energy during the day, same rules as the solar boilers. Distilled water also doubles the amount of time at which the photovoltaic cells will last. Now, like the solar boilers, they are dependent on how much they make. So, early in the day and late in the day, they will make a lot less than they will at noon. And I guess I need some cables here, but you kind of get the point, I guess. This is just so that you can automate production of the solar energy, I guess. So yeah, you'll want to automate this stuff. And that's pretty much it for the entire mod. I know I got a little stuttery sometimes, but point being, as I say, this is the entirety of the extended industrialization mod. Ignore that the farm just disappeared. For whatever reason, the world got corrupted, and I don't know exactly what caused it, so maybe be a little careful with those farmers. Make sure there's outputs for your stuff. I don't know exactly what the issue was, but in any case, thank you for watching. This has been Pick. I'm glad to have seen you, and I hope to see you again.